Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. So today we are doing a very exciting book haul. I have accumulated a good number of books this summer, so we are gonna go through all of these. My past couple book hauls, I have been ranking the books in some fun, stupid way for absolutely no reason. So this time I ranked them based on how much I like the cover. So we will start with the worst covers and then work our way up to the absolute best, most beautiful covers that I would literally sell my soul for. So first up, worst cover, Heir of Novron by Michael J. Sullivan. This is the third bind up in the Rhaeria Revelation series, which I am making my way through. I read the first bind up and I'm planning on reading the second one soon. Honestly, like, this cover's not the worst in the world, but it's kind of it's giving nothing. I feel like this series could have better covers. But basically, this is a fantasy series about these two guys who are partners. One of them is like a master swordsman and the other one is a very skilled thief. And they just like work together and they get wrapped up in this whole like political thing that is going on in the world. I really loved the first book, so I'm excited to continue on in the series. Next up, I have two books by the same author and I'm actually gonna unhaul these. You're gonna see them here in the book haul, but they're immediately being unhauled. That is all of the Blake books. Firstly, I just don't really care for either of these covers. They're just kind of, they're giving nothing. And especially considering like the inside artwork on the book is like stunning. The outside cover is just, it's whatever. And then this one is like, we've already talked about it. If you watch my vlog where I read this book, you know how I feel about the bees. Free the bees. The bees don't deserve this. So yeah, I read this in my vlog where I was giving authors I have disliked a second chance, and please watch that vlog to hear all of my thoughts for this book because I hated it. I gave it 1 star and I will not be reading another Olivia Blake book, and unfortunately I had recently bought another one of her books. Next up we have The Heir by Sophie Lark. This was the final book that I needed in this Kingmaker series. It's actually the first book. This is a mafia series that follows like the descendants of mafia families at this school where they train to be in the mafia. So it's like Mafia Hogwarts and it sounds so much fun. I've been collecting the books in the series because I don't think that these editions are in publication anymore. And I just really love the spines. All the spines have this neon writing. I don't love the covers, but the spines on the shelf look so good together and they really stand out. So I wanted them in these editions. Next up we have The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This cover also is not terrible, but it kind of just looks like a hodgepodge of random things. Like, I don't even really know what is on here, but this I'm so excited to read. I've been hearing great things about it. It is a fantasy romance about this competition where the winner is granted a wish, and the main character is the adopted human daughter of the Night King vampire. So there's vampires in this world, so she's having to fight in this competition against like legendary vampires from noble houses. It just sounds so good. I love a competition or like a tournament, so I am so excited to read this. Next up, we have a book that I own arguably too many copies of, and that is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This is probably one of my all-time favorite romance books ever, and this was sent to me from Bloom. It is the new like traditionally published cover. I think of all of my covers of Still Beating, this is probably my least favorite. It's not terrible. I personally just love the imagery of like the original cover with the hands and the chains. I just feel like that gives the vibe of the book better than this cover, but you know what? I just need every single edition of this book in existence, and I think I have them all. Next up, I have Crossed by Emily McIntyre. This is part of her Never After series that is like dark romances inspired by Disney villains. This one is Hunchback of Notre Dame, but with Esmeralda and Frollo, which makes me scared, if I'm being honest, but I'm intrigued. It also came with some artwork. I'm like super behind in the series. I've actually only read the first book, but I do want to like binge and marathon them. But I don't know, like the premise of this one, it scares me, but it also very much, my interest is piqued. And next up, I have two books in the same series. That is Dragon Shadow and Flamebringer. These are the second and third books to Hearthstone, which I loved. That is the Pride and Prejudice dragon book that I read recently. These covers are fine. I just prefer the first one because, here, I'll show you. The first book, like the dragon is in the forefront front and the girl is like tiny down here. I just don't love that like she is so prominent. This first cover is just like so stunning, and these are just like fine. But yeah, like I said, this is Pride and Prejudice but with dragons, and it is amazing. I have already read the second book and I'm hopefully going to be reading the third one soon. Next up, I have a new release, which is The Narrow by Kate Alice Marshall. This is her new YA horror book. You guys know I'm obsessed with her YA horror. It is just so wacky and crazy and fun, and I cannot wait to read this. This is another one that I'm hopefully going to be reading very soon. This takes place at a school that has this river behind it, and there's this like myth that nobody goes into the river and survives, except that is not true. The main character has witnessed another student at the school get into the river and live, but now that person lives in isolation, sealed off from the world. Even a single drop of unpurified water could be deadly to her, and nobody knows why. It just sounds very interesting, and like I said, all of Kate Alice Marshall's horror books are absolutely crazy, and I can't wait to read this. Then we have another book that I haven't read recently, and that is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I almost said Gabby Jimenez. That is inside joke. If you have watched my vlog where I read this, this was also read in my Giving Authors a Second Chance video, and I absolutely loved this. I gave it 5 stars. It is a small town, opposites attract, age gap romance with an older heroine and a younger hero, and it was just perfect. Like absolutely perfect. And that's saying a lot for me, considering I at one point said I would never read another Abby Jimenez book after reading The Friend Zone, but this was so good. Now we're getting into a stack of books that the covers aren't bad, they're just kind of, they're giving nothing. Briar Dark by S.A. Harrion. I have read this one. I read this during Summerween. This is like a cosmic horror expedition book about this crew who go into this forest, and then crazy shit starts happening. I really enjoyed it. However, it ends on such a huge cliffhanger, and the second book is not out yet. So that was a little bit disappointing, but I still really enjoyed it. Next up, we have more books that were sent to me by Bloom, and that is the whole Four Horsemen series by Laura Thalassa, which I have read all of these books. These, when I first saw the covers of these books, I did not really like them. I love the original covers, but in person, they're actually kind of nice. I do kind of like them. Again, they're not giving what the original covers are giving, but they're still cute. I don't know, I like the black background and then how much the like images stand out. These are romance books that follow the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and I love this series so much. More books in series. As you can see, I was buying a lot of sequels. We have 10,000 Stitches and Long Shadow by Olivia Atwater. These are the second and third books in the Half a Soul series. These are like cozy, Regency, fairy fantasy books, and I'm so excited to read these two. I did recently read Half a Soul. Next up, I have Ink Blood Sister Scribe, which I am currently reading. This is my book club book for this month. This one is about two estranged half-sisters who are tasked with guarding their family's magical library, and they must work together to unravel a deadly secret at the heart of their collection. So far, I am really enjoying this, but I am reading it a little bit slowly since it is my book club book, and I like to take my time with those. Next up, we have Witch King by Martha Wells. This one, I don't love this cover. I mean, it's fine, but the sprayed edges, gorgeous. The inside, gorgeous. Like, look at that. Oh my God. The Naked book is stunning. But this one is about like a magical being who is imprisoned in a water trap, and then he is able to escape, and he's trying to figure out why he was imprisoned in the first place, what has changed in the world. I really loved Martha Wells' her Murderbot series, so I am excited to try this book. Next up, we have another book that was sent to me by Bloom, and that is Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is, again, the new traditionally published copy. When I first saw these editions, I did not really care for them, but actually, in person, I really like it. And the strawberries actually represent something in the book. What I don't love about a lot of the traditionally published romance books is that they'll just have like an object on the cover that makes no sense, like a flower or something, and it just, like, it doesn't make any sense for the book. This actually represents stuff in the book, so I do like it. I've also talked about this. This book has artwork inside, and it has some steamy artwork in it, some spicy artwork in it. So fair warning, because my niece did flip through this book before I knew about it, and don't make the same mistake that I did. Next up, I have Powerless and Reckless by Elsie Silver. This is the third and fourth book in her Chestnut Spring series. I am loving this series. These are small town cowboy romances that are just so good. Like, I'm literally on my knees for this series, and I cannot wait to read these two books. I'm very excited to get to this one because the heroine in this one is a character that I really like, and I've been hearing from everyone that this is like their favorite book in the series. If you have read the Chestnut Spring series, let me know which your favorite book in the series is. Next up, I have Be Sure by Seanan McGuire. This is a bind up of the first 3 books in the Wayward Children series, which you guys know is one of my all-time favorite series. And it's so cool that they did a bind up. I'm really hoping that they continue doing these for the rest of the books, even though I already own the whole series. I just love this, and I love that the cover has all of these different doors on them, because if you don't know, this series is a fantasy series about magical doorways that take children into other magical worlds. And I also feel like this bind up, it's much more costly for people because the other books are quite expensive and they're short. So if you have been wanting to try out this series, the bind up is like the perfect way to do it because you get more bang for your buck. The next book that I have is a very interesting one. It was sent to me by the publisher, and that is 101 Horror Books to Read Before You're Murdered. And this is basically a collection of like horror book recommendations. It is so cool. They're all split up into different like horror subgenres. So you have demons and possession, cosmic horror, dystopian, cults, slashers, and serial killers. It is really cool. And then there's also little essays in here by different horror authors. And there's a whole like key for all of the books that gives you like different tropes and things about them, like Mindbender, Locked Room, small town horror, character driven, different horror tones. It is a really cool book. I cannot wait to like flip through this and read all about it. It's really cool. Next up, I have Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand. This is a middle grade book, which I don't read a lot of middle grade, but this sounded really good. It's about this young girl who has a lot going on in her life. She escapes by creating this magical forest and writing about it in her notebook until she discovers the forest behind her grandparents' house and realizes that it is the Everwood forest that she has been creating. So that just sounds so cute. It's giving like cozy fantasy vibes, so I did want to give it a try, even though, like I said, I don't read a lot of middle grade. Next up, I have The Enchanted Hacienda. This is a cozy fantasy romance that really feels like Emily Henry meets Encanto. It is about this girl whose family all have magical abilities, except she's the only one who hasn't found her magical affinity, and there's a little romance in it, and I love this cover. I think it is so beautiful. Next up, I have Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is the Illumicrate Evernight edition of it, so it's silver. It has these really cool sprayed edges, but the naked cover, like, look at that. That is so cool. And then the end pages, I love this edition. This is a horror book about, how do I sum this up? It takes place in Mexico. It's about Mexican cinema, specifically horror movies, and this director who thinks their horror movie was cursed and they were never able to finish it, and there's cults and magic and creatures, and it was very interesting. I just love the like silver versus the red. I mean, the red original cover was definitely really good and very eye-catching, but I just feel like the silver gives it more of this like old-timey movie vibe. Next up, I have His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. This is the new edition of this book, which is so stunning. The original cover of this book was ugly, and I was never interested in it because of that cover, but I saw this one and I was like, what is that? I must have it. You guys also know, like, I've been in such a big dragon craze lately. So this one is alternate history. It is about a rare bond formed between a young man and a dragon, and together they must battle in the Napoleonic Wars. This was recommended to me a lot in my dragon vlog in the comments of that video, so I'm very excited to read this. Also, what's cool is I saw in Barnes & Noble the whole series lined up, and when the series is lined up, the spine has a design on it of like dragons flying across, and it looks so cool. Lastly, we have my favorite cover, and that is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. This cover is just so stunning. This one is his new book that is very much like fantasy romance. It sounds really cute because he actually wrote this for his wife who really likes romance. And it's about these two characters who come from different worlds. One is like a day world and one is a night world, but somehow they end up connected and they're existing like in each other's bodies and trying to navigate each other's lives and worlds, and it sounds so cool. I cannot wait to read this. And this is definitely one that I'm going to be displaying with the cover facing out on my bookshelf because it is just so beautiful. So those were all of the books that I have gotten in the past couple of months. Let me know in the comments which cover you liked the best out of all of these, or which cover you think is the ugliest. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and consider checking out my Patreon where I post tons of exclusive content. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!